So what if you could actually engineer a spiritual experience? Today, we're going to dive into a once classified program that was designed to map the furthest reaches of human consciousness. And we're going to see it all through the eyes of someone who was there and who recorded his incredible journey over 35 years ago. And get this wasn't just some fringe experiment. As our source found out decades later, the tools used in this program were so powerful, they actually became the foundation for the CIA's own research into human potential. Yeah, you heard that right.
So that's the big question, isn't it? What on earth was this Gateway program? What did people discover there that was so potent it ended up on the CIA's radar? Let's find out.
To really get the program, you first have to understand the man who created it. And you might be picturing some kind of mystic or a guru, but he wasn't. He was an engineer. Okay, so meet Robert Monroe. It's the late 1950s, he's a super successful radio engineer, and then something really strange starts happening to him. He finds himself just spontaneously floating outside of his body. At first he was terrified. I mean, wouldn't you be? He thought he had a brain tumor or it was literally going crazy. But after a doctor checked him out and said, "Hey, you're not sick," Monroe's engineer brain just completely took over.
He looked at this deeply personal, mystical thing happening to him and asked a very practical question. Okay, I'm a radio guy. I know sound waves. Could I use sound to replicate this experience on demand? He put on his engineer's hat and got right to work.
And his solution was this amazing technology called HemiSync. The idea is pretty brilliant. It plays slightly different sound frequencies into each of your ears. Your brain tries to make sense of this, and in doing so, the right and left hemispheres start to synchronize. The goal? To get your brain into this super focused, coherent state. A state just perfect for exploring consciousness.
All right, so he's got the tech, but what was it actually like to go through this week-long program? Well, lucky for us, the author of our source material kept a detailed audio diary, so we get a real first-person account. The setup was intense and totally immersive. First thing they did, took away everyone's watches. You had no sense of normal time. Your day was this cycle. You'd go into an isolation unit, put on headphones, listen to the HemiSync tapes, have an experience, and then meet with the group to talk about it, over and over. This was not a lecture series. It was a laboratory for your own mind.
And you didn't just jump into the deep end. The whole week was this structured climb through different states of consciousness, which they called focus levels. You'd start at focus 10, which is basically mind awake, body asleep. From there, you'd climb all the way to focus 21, which was described as a bridge to other realities.
And this is what's so cool. We have the receipts. The author recorded his entire journey on these audio tapes, giving us this raw, unfiltered look at what it was like to be in these states as it was happening.
You know, his early descriptions are just full of pure wonder. He talks about being completely taken out of his body, bathed in light, even having conversations with beings he called angels. He came up with the perfect nickname for the place, the Disneyland of spiritual. I love that. It just captures that sense of amazement. But pretty quickly, the experiences went from just wonderful to truly, deeply profound. During an exercise on nonverbal communication, or NVC, he had this vision of what he called people from outer space. And the communication, it wasn't words. It was this direct download of love and energy that was so overwhelming, he just had tears of joy streaming down his face.
Everything was leading up to this, the culmination of the entire program. The journey into the deepest state they explored, what Monroe called Focus 21.
So here he is in this incredibly deep state, and he has a vision of Robert Monroe himself. And Monroe doesn't give some big cosmic speech. He just looks at him, smiles, gives him a thumbs up and says, "Go for it and enjoy the experience." What an amazing, personal, and reassuring thing to see at the very edge of reality. And that little moment, that thumbs up, it was like the final key. It opened the door to the peak experience of the whole week, this feeling of being completely submerged in a light of pure love and intelligence. The way he put it was just perfect. He felt his soul was finally flying free. And then came the twist. This might be the most important lesson of the entire program. In an exercise called the no-tape experience, they were told to reach these states all on their own, without the HemiSync. And that's when the real purpose of the technology just clicked into place.
The realization was so simple but so profound. The technology, the tapes, the whole program, none of it was magic. They were just training wheels on a bicycle. They were a method to teach people how to access a power, a potential that was already inside them the whole time. So, okay, you have this absolutely mind-bending experience, but what does it mean decades down the line? How does a trip to the edge of reality actually hold up over time? Well, the author's perspective shifted, big time. Back then, he knew it was a huge deal, but he admits he just didn't have the maturity to understand how precious these tools really were. But looking back now, with decades of experience, he just sees the absolute brilliance of what Robert Monroe created.
And that new perspective, it didn't come easy. It was earned over more than 50 years of his own meditation practice. Think about that. Half a century of reflection gave him a completely new appreciation for the genius of the Gateway Program.
So what's the real legacy of the Gateway Program? Why is it so enduring? Well, it took these mystical experiences out of the realm of chance and brought them into the lab. It gave people a structured, repeatable method for self-discovery. And maybe most importantly, it showed that these profound states of consciousness aren't just accidents. They can be trained. And that was the core of it all. Robert Monroe was a true pioneer. He stood right at that crossroads where science and spirituality meet, and he was using audio engineering to map the human soul way back in the 1950s. He was decades ahead of his time. And really, that's the bottom line. That's what made this program so unique, and why everyone from spiritual seekers to the CIA took notice. This wasn't about faith or belief, it was about direct experience. It was a systematic, technological approach to exploring the vast and still mostly unknown potential of the human mind.
So that leaves us with this one last incredible question to chew on. If a simple set of sound frequencies can act as training wheels for the soul, unlocking these feelings of cosmic unity and communication beyond words, what other amazing abilities are just sitting there inside of us, waiting for the right key to unlock them?